Nigerian senator fights back after suspension over sexual harassment allegations. A Battle for Justice, Gender Equality, and Democracy by WealthSphere Media, political analyst. A bold stand against political suppression. Senator Natasha Akpoti has refused to be silenced after her suspension from the Nigerian Senate following sexual harassment allegations against Senate President Godswill Akpobio. In a recent international address, she laid bare the systemic suppression of women in Nigeria's political landscape and the lengths to which powerful figures will go to maintain their grip on power. Suspended for 6 months and stripped of all official privileges including security, salaries, and vehicles, Akpoti has taken her fight beyond Nigeria's borders, calling on the international community to intervene. The senator described her suspension as an outright assault on democracy, arguing that her punishment was not just about alleged misconduct, but a calculated attempt to discourage women from holding powerful positions. If a female senator can be treated this way in full view of the world, imagine what ordinary Nigerian women go through every day, she said. The underlying message was clear. Her battle is not just a personal struggle, but a broader movement against gender-based discrimination, corruption, and abuse of power in Nigeria. Her speech also emphasized the gravity of political victimization in Nigeria, where female representation in government is alarmingly low. Women hold only 3.6% of political offices, and in the Senate, they account for just 2.8% of seats. With Akpoti suspension, that number has dwindled further, reinforcing a pattern of exclusion. Rather than addressing her sexual harassment claims through due process, the Senate moved swiftly to punish her, a move critics say is emblematic of a patriarchal system designed to silence women who challenge the status quo. Beyond Nigeria, Akpoti case has resonated with international human rights organizations. The United Nations Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, Resolution 48-114, explicitly recognizes sexual harassment as a form of gender-based violence. Her call for an open, transparent investigation has been met with resistance, reinforcing concerns that Nigerian political institutions are unwilling to hold male politicians accountable for misconduct. The senator's defiance has put the Nigerian government in the global spotlight, with pressure mounting for international organizations to push for accountability. The bigger picture: gender, power, and systemic suppression. Akpoti case is more than a political controversy. It highlights the long-standing culture of harassment, intimidation, and exclusion that women in Nigerian politics face. The reality is stark. The country remains one of the toughest places for women in leadership, despite its democratic framework. This systemic marginalization extends beyond politics, affecting workplaces, universities, and corporate spaces, where many women experience similar forms of harassment but lack the platform to speak out. Women in Nigeria, especially those in leadership, often face threats, blackmail, and character assassination when they challenge male-dominated power structures. The apologize and retract demand that Akpoti received from some of her male colleagues is a glaring example of how women are expected to endure injustice quietly rather than demand accountability. But the senator has taken a different approach. She has refused to apologize and has instead vowed to reintroduce her petition on the very first day she returns to the Senate. The broader issue of political gatekeeping is also at play. In Nigeria, women are often discouraged from running for office through bureaucratic hurdles, lack of funding, and targeted intimidation. This case reinforces the belief that any woman who dares to challenge the system will be met with severe consequences. The suspension of a female senator, rather than an investigation into the alleged harassment, sends a dangerous signal to young women considering a future in politics. It says, "Step up and we will tear you down." However, Akpoti response is rewriting the narrative. By taking her fight to the international stage, she is exposing not only the injustice against her but also the deep-rooted flaws in Nigeria's legislative and judicial processes. Her insistence on pursuing legal action and advocacy ensures that this case will not simply fade away like past allegations against powerful men in the country's political system. Public outcry and the battle for justice. Since Akpoti suspension, Protests have erupted across Nigeria, with women's rights activists, political groups, and legal experts calling for her reinstatement. Civil society organizations have condemned the Senate's actions as an attack on free speech and women's participation in governance. The Socioeconomic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has filed legal motions demanding an independent review of the senator's suspension, calling it unconstitutional and an abuse of power. On social media, the senator's case has gained massive traction, with hashtags like Justice for Natasha, End Political Oppression, and #Women in Politics trending. Many Nigerians view this as a defining moment in the fight against institutionalized sexism and corrupt political maneuvering. The question now is whether the Senate will be forced to backtrack under pressure or double down on its punitive measures. Internationally, women's movements and democratic institutions are urging Nigeria to uphold its commitments to gender equity and fair governance. Some legal experts have even suggested that Nigeria's failure to handle this case justly could affect international relations, including foreign aid and investment, as democratic institutions worldwide frown upon gender-based political suppression. Meanwhile, Akpoti Uduaghan's legal battle continues. If her lawsuit succeeds, it could set a powerful legal precedent protecting women in politics from political retaliation. However, if her suspension remains unchallenged, it could reinforce the fear that Nigerian political institutions are hostile to women and unwilling to hold powerful figures accountable. What happens next? The road to change. Akpoti Uduaghan has made it clear she is not backing down. Despite immense pressure, she refuses to apologize or retract her statements. Instead, she has vowed to serve her 6-month suspension and reintroduce her petition upon her return. Her defiance is a direct challenge to the Senate's attempt to silence her, and a test of Nigeria's commitment to justice. The next few weeks will be crucial. If international bodies, human rights organizations, and democratic allies continue to apply pressure, the Nigerian Senate may be forced to reconsider its stance. Calls for a fair, independent investigation into the harassment allegations could grow louder, especially if other female politicians come forward with similar experiences. In the long run, this case has the potential to spark legislative changes. Advocacy groups are now pushing for stricter laws against political harassment and intimidation, similar to measures implemented in countries like South Africa and Rwanda, where women's political representation has seen significant improvements due to legal protections. Nigeria could learn from these models, ensuring that women in leadership have institutional safeguards against political bullying. For now, the battle lines are drawn. Akpoti Uduaghan is standing her ground, backed by a growing movement of supporters who believe her suspension is unjust. Whether this leads to real change or becomes yet another case swept under the rug depends on how much pressure is applied by the Nigerian public, the legal system, and the international community. One thing is certain, this is no longer just about one senator. This is about the future of women in Nigerian politics, and the world is watching.